Imagine for a second that your greatest blessings, the things you are most deeply grateful for,
Right.
like the comfortable traditions you hold dearest, what if they're actually the exact things blinding you to God?
Oof. Yeah, that is a heavy thought.
It really is. Like, what if the very practices meant to bring you closer to the truth have secretly formed this hardened shell over your heart?
Oh.
Welcome to today's deep dive, and may God bless your day and your week ahead as we embark on this journey with you. Today, we are attempting to scale an absolute mountain of text.
It's definitely a mountain.
Yeah. We're exploring the intense cosmic drama of salvation found in the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans, specifically chapters 10 and 11.
Right.
Our mission today is to navigate the razor-thin tension between human effort and divine grace, and to unravel the interconnected, honestly, almost mind-bending destinies of Jews and Gentiles.
It is a massive undertaking. And, to really grasp the weight of it, we have to start by looking at the posture of the man who wrote it.
Yeah, Paul.
Right. Because Paul is often stereotyped as this hyper-intellectual, cold, calculating academic.
Like he's just sitting in a pristine theological laboratory.
Exactly. Just crunching doctrinal numbers. But that completely misses the reality of these chapters. I mean, he doesn't start this complex theological argument at a chalkboard.
No, he doesn't.
He starts it on his knees.
Uh-huh.
These deep arguments about predestination and election, they're born out of a completely breaking heart.
Right.
He is in literal agony over the spiritual state of his own people, the Israelites.
And right away, that forces us to ask, why the agony? What is the barricade keeping his people from the salvation he's experiencing?
Yeah, that's the big question.
When you dig into the text, a really fascinating and honestly somewhat terrifying detail emerges. Israel was not apathetic.
No, not at all.
They had immense fiery zeal for God. But, as the sources point out, zeal without knowledge is essentially fanaticism.
It really is.
Sincerity just isn't enough, because it's entirely possible to be completely, sincerely, passionately wrong.
Exactly. And this is a trap that any of us listening can easily fall into. I mean, the problem wasn't a lack of religious fervor or a failure to try hard enough.
Right.
It was a fundamental misunderstanding of the mechanics of righteousness. They were attempting to establish their own righteousness through strict adherence to the law.
Which completely misses the point.
Right, completely missing the fact that righteousness is something that comes down from God, not something we build up to him.
I was reading through the source material on this, and the visual that kept coming to mind was someone trying to build a DIY rocket ship in their backyard to reach the moon.
Oh, that's a great image.
Right. Picture it. You're putting in massive amounts of effort. You are incredibly sincere. You're sweating day and night over the blueprints, welding scrap metal, literally risking your life.
Yeah.
But you are completely ignoring the fact that God has already installed a working elevator right behind you that takes you straight to the top.
That is exactly it.
They were essentially trying to build their own righteousness as a monument to their own glory.
That's a brilliant way to capture the sheer exhaustion and really the futility of it. And to understand why that backyard rocket could never even get off the ground, we need to look at the Greek word Paul uses here, which is telos.
Okay, telos.
Yeah, he states that Christ is the telos of the law. Now, this translates to end, but it means end in two very distinct ways.
So, like multiple layers of meaning.
Right. First, Christ is the goal of the law. He's the target it was always pointing toward.
Okay.
The law was a signpost, a map meant to guide humanity to the Savior. But instead of following the map to the destination, they stopped.
They just stopped right there on the trail.
Yeah, they stopped, pitched a tent, and started worshiping the map itself.
So they completely lost the plot. The tool became the idol.
Exactly. And the second meaning of telos is termination. Christ is the termination of the law as a mechanism for earning justification.
Because he perfectly fulfilled it.
Right, because he did that whole old world order of trying to earn your way to heaven through flawless obedience, which, by the way, no human could ever actually achieve, is over.
It's done.
Yeah, the treadmill has been unplugged for those who believe.
Wait, let me push back on this a little, because for a lot of people, the idea of unplugging the treadmill sounds almost irresponsible.
I get that.
If the DIY route is impossible and, human effort is off the table, how exactly does someone access this righteousness? It almost sounds too easy.
Well, that's the scandal of grace, isn't it?
Yeah.
Paul addresses that exact skepticism by pointing out how shockingly accessible it is. You don't need to do the impossible. The text specifically says you don't need to scale the heights of heaven to pull Christ down,
Right.
and you don't need to dive into the darkest abyss to bring him up from the dead. Why? Because the work is already finished.
It's right there.
The word of faith is right there in your mouth and in your heart. You don't have to achieve it, you just have to receive it.
Okay, but if it is that accessible, if the elevator doors are just sitting there wide open, why on earth are people still in the backyard welding their broken rocket ships?
It's a great question.
Why the massive rejection?
It's a profound tragedy, honestly, and it forces us to look at the chain of evangelism. There is an unbreakable logical sequence to how this message spreads.
Okay, walk me through that.
Well, no preacher means no hearing.
Right.
No hearing means no believing. And no believing means no saving.
So the message physically has to be delivered.
Exactly. That is why the feet of those who bring good news are described as beautiful. The messenger is beautiful because of the life-saving grace they're carrying.
But the breakdown for Israel wasn't a delivery issue, right? The sources make it very clear that this wasn't a case of them just not getting the memo.
No, not at all. It wasn't a lack of information. Israel's unbelief is framed as inexcusable, precisely because they did hear it.
They were surrounded by the evidence.
They were. They had the universal witness of nature, the heavens declaring the glory of God, and they had the specific widespread preaching of the gospel. They heard it, but they actively, stubbornly rejected it. And there is this heartbreaking image drawn from the prophet Isaiah, depicting God standing there all day long, holding his hands out to a disobedient, defiant people.
Just waiting.
Yeah. He is patiently, relentlessly extending an invitation, and they just keep slapping his hands away.
Which, that forces a really uncomfortable question. If you're the listener right now, put yourself in that dynamic.
Yeah, think about it.
If someone kept slapping your hands away, how long before you just walk away? Did God finally just give up on them? Did he tear up the contract and reject his people entirely?
By no means. That is the emphatic, immediate response in the text. God does not cancel his promises.
Right.
And the proof of this is the concept of the remnant chosen by grace. Even in the darkest periods of rebellion, God always preserves a faithful minority.
Like the story of Elijah.
Exactly. Look at Elijah. He was hiding in a cave in absolute despair, looking around at the rampant idolatry of his nation, and he tells God, I am the only believer left.
Everyone else is compromised.
Right, and now they want to kill me. But God reveals a reality that Elijah couldn't see. God had secretly, sovereignly preserved 7,000 people who had never bowed their knee to the false god Baal.
That makes me think of walking through a forest in the dead of winter.
Oh, I like that.
You look around, and above ground, everything looks completely dead. The branches are bare, the bark is brittle, it looks barren and entirely hopeless.
Yeah, total desolation.
But beneath the soil, completely out of sight, there is a vital living root system that is secretly preserving key shoots. The life is still there, pulsing beneath the surface, even when your eyes tell you the forest is gone.
That is the perfect visual for the remnant. The root system is alive, but, we still have to deal with the part of the forest that was dead above ground.
Right. What was happening to the majority of Israel?
To explain this, we encounter a fascinating Greek medical term in the text, porosis.
Porosis. I know we use similar root words in English, but what exactly does that mean in this ancient medical context?
It literally refers to a callus.
Okay, a callus.
Yeah, imagine the hardened, ossified skin that forms over a bone fracture or, on a workman's hands.
Right.
Over time, because of repetitive friction, that area becomes completely insensitive to the touch. It loses all feeling.
So they were diagnosed with a spiritual callus.
Exactly. Because they continuously brushed up against God's truth and rejected it, their hearts developed this thick, impenetrable layer. They became entirely insensitive to spiritual reality.
If a spiritual callus, that is terrifying, especially when you consider how a callus forms. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, it takes time.
It happens through constant repetitive exposure without any real change.
Exactly. And the ultimate tragedy of this porosis is the source of the friction. It wasn't that they ran off to participate in obvious heinous evils.
Right, it was something else.
The text says their very blessings became a table that turned into a snare.
Wow.
Their sacred traditions, their rituals, their daily religious routines, the very things designed to point them directly to God, became a substitute for the actual experience of God.
So they got so comfortable checking their religious boxes that the boxes became a trap.
Precisely.
I want the listener to really sit with that for a second. Think about your own life. Is it possible that your comfortable routines, even the good ones, are creating a callus?
That is a chilling thought.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder about the grand design here. Was the purpose of this spiritual callus just punitive? Did they stumble over this just so they could fall and be utterly destroyed?
Not at all. And this is where the sheer genius of God's overarching strategy really comes into focus. Their stumbling was not the end of the story. It was a mechanism for expansion.
Okay, how so?
Think of a massive, rushing river that suddenly gets dammed up. Because the water is blocked from flowing down its natural historical channel.
Yeah.
It doesn't just stop.
Right, water always finds a way.
Exactly. It builds up, overflows the banks, and violently redirects, irrigating entirely new areas of land that would have otherwise remained a desert. Israel's temporary rejection of the gospel acted like a dam, redirecting the roaring waters of salvation outward, flooding the Gentile world.
So the tragedy of the natural branches breaking actually brought life to the rest of the world. But surely God didn't just abandon the original riverbed forever.
No.
Yeah.
The ultimate purpose of redirecting that water to the Gentiles was actually to provoke Israel to what the text calls a holy jealousy.
Holy jealousy.
Yeah. The strategy was that Israel would look over and see the Gentile nations' people they historically considered outsiders enjoying all the incredible spiritual riches of the covenant.
Like peace with God, the Holy Spirit, profound joy.
Exactly. And they would experience this deep spiritual emulation. They would realize, wait a minute, those are our family promises. We want our inheritance back.
So the redirection was designed to eventually draw them back in.
That was always the goal.
Hang on, if I'm a Gentile listener hearing this, human nature dictates that I might be feeling pretty smug right about now.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very easy to think, well, they messed up their shot and we capitalized on it. We're the new favorites. We won the spot.
Which is exactly the dangerous, arrogant attitude Paul anticipates, and he completely crushes it using the metaphor of an olive tree.
Okay, the olive tree.
He tells the Gentiles, look at the tree you are sitting in. Abraham and the patriarchs, they are the holy root system. The Jewish people are the natural branches that grew organically from that root.
Okay.
Because of unbelief, some of those natural branches were snapped off. And you, the Gentiles, are wild olive branches that have been grafted in.
And anyone who knows anything about horticulture knows that grafting a wild branch into a cultivated noble tree is not how the process naturally works.
It is completely against nature. It is an absolute staggering miracle of grace that you are attached to this tree at all.
Yeah.
You don't support the root supports you. So Paul issues this very stark, sobering warning. Do not be arrogant. Consider both the kindness and the sternness of God.
That's a heavy warning.
It is. Because if God did not spare the natural branches when they fell into arrogant unbelief, he certainly won't spare the wild branches if they start getting proud. You are only standing by faith.
So there's absolutely zero room for anyone to boast. We are all just sitting in a tree we didn't plant.
Precisely. And Paul pushes the logic of the tree even further to offer incredible hope.
Hope for who?
For Israel. He argues, if God has the miraculous power to take a wild branch and graft it in against nature, imagine how much easier it is for him to take the natural branches, the Jewish people who stumbled, and graft them right back into their very own tree once they leave their unbelief behind.
Because the biology already matches. It's their tree.
Exactly.
So where does this massive horticultural experiment of breaking branches off, grafting wild ones in, and preparing to regraft the original branches ultimately lead? It feels like all this tension is building toward a massive climax.
It is. It's building to what the text calls a mystery, a profound future-looking revelation about the climax of human history. Paul declares that this partial hardening, this spiritual parosis over Israel, has a definitive time limit. It will only last until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in.
The fullness of the Gentiles, let's unpack that. Are we talking about a specific number of people or like a specific era in time?
It refers to the completion of God's gathering from the non-Jewish world. It's that future moment when the full ordained number of the elect from the Gentile nations has been brought into the family.
Right.
And the moment that happens, the text makes a staggering declarative statement. All Israel will be saved.
All Israel. I mean, that is a massive theological claim. Does that mean every single individual of Jewish descent throughout all of history without a single exception?
Well, it's important to be precise here. The general theological consensus is that all Israel does not mean a strict mathematical absolute of every single individual without exception.
Okay, so how should we understand it?
In biblical literature, phrases like all Israel or all Jerusalem are frequently used to describe a massive corporate reality, a national movement.
Got it.
What is being promised here is a monumental national turning. A great, undeniable mass of the Jewish people, the very nation that was previously hardened with that spiritual callous, will have their eyes suddenly opened and they will corporately embrace Christ.
So the grand narrative was never about replacement. God didn't replace Israel with the church. His plan was expansion to the Gentiles, followed by the ultimate restoration of Israel.
That is the beautiful symmetry of it. Paul summarizes this entire mind-bending strategy by stating that God literally locked everyone into the dungeon of disobedience.
Dungeon of disobedience.
Yeah, he locked the Gentiles up in their paganism, and then he locked the Jews up in their rejection of the Messiah.
Why? Why do that?
So that he could have mercy on everyone. He deliberately leveled the playing field. He destroyed any possibility of a meritocracy so that salvation could only ever be understood by both groups as a pure, unadulterated gift of grace.
And if you really comprehend that, if you truly understand that you were locked in a dungeon with no key and the door was kicked open entirely by grace, it should fundamentally change you. It has to.
Studying theology shouldn't just puff up our brains with interesting data points about olive trees and roots. If it doesn't drop down into our hearts and produce awe, we have completely missed the point.
Totally agree.
And that is exactly what happens to Paul. After laying out this cosmic drama, he doesn't pat himself on the back for writing a brilliant theological treatise. He is overwhelmed.
Yeah, he is.
He bursts into praise, which brings us to the famous doxology at the end of chapter 11.
And what a climax it is. After tracing these incredibly complex, unsearchable paths of God's historical plan, Paul essentially throws his hands up and cries, "Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God."
It's beautiful.
It is. He recognizes that we cannot domesticate God. We cannot fit him into a neat little theological spreadsheet. Who has ever been his counselor?
No one.
Right. Who has ever given a gift to God that God somehow owes them payback? The answer is no one. His wisdom is completely beyond our capacity to search out.
He is operating on a multidimensional chessboard, and we are just trying to figure out how the pawns move. Exactly. And the text finishes by breaking down God's absolute sovereignty in a way that is just breathtaking.
Yeah.
It says, "For from him and through him and to him are all things."
From, through, and to.
Those three tiny prepositions hold the entire universe together. All things are from him. He is the ultimate origin and source. All things are through him. He is the active sustainer, keeping every atom and every historical event moving. And all things are to him. He is the final goal, the ultimate heir, the target of all creation.
From him, through him, to him. If that is true, that leaves absolutely zero room for us to brag about our backyard DIY rockets, doesn't it?
None whatsoever. If every ounce of our salvation and our very existence is from, through, and to him, then the only logical, rational response for any human being is exactly how Paul ends the chapter, which is, "To him be the glory forever. Amen."
What an incredible place to land. Let's quickly review the massive journey we just took. We started by looking at the dangerous trap of DIY righteousness.
Having all the zeal in the world, but ignoring the elevator God provided.
Exactly, and exhausting ourselves trying to build our own way to the moon. We dug deep into the tragic reality of the parosis, that spiritual callous where people became entirely insensitive to God, ironically, because they turned their own blessings and rituals into a trap.
Yeah, the table became a snare.
Right. But then we saw the breathtaking beauty of God's grand design. A globally grafted olive tree, where the damming of one river brought the floodwaters of grace to the rest of the world.
All with the ultimate goal of bringing everyone back together in a massive final display of universal mercy.
It really is a masterful synthesis. It holds human responsibility and God's sovereign, unsearchable grace in perfect tension.
It really does. And it leaves us with a stark challenge to look at our own standing and recognize that any place we occupy in that olive tree is entirely 100% due to the kindness of God, not our own natural merit.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. I want you to think about that concept of the parosis, the spiritual callous.
Yeah.
We saw how Israel's very blessings and traditions became the snare that hardened them. Examine your own life right now. Are there areas where your blessings, your successes, or your comfortable daily routines have actually become a trap?
It's a tough question to ask.
It is. Have they subtly made you insensitive to a deeper truth or a required change that is staring you right in the face? It is terrifyingly easy to build a callous over our hearts while sitting right in the middle of God's provisions. Don't let the map become your idol. And with that, we wrap up today's deep dive. May God bless all of you listeners, and we'll see you next time.